This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. It's winter time here, and it's time to see what we can do with all those fruits and vegetables at the farmer's market. Welcome to the Farmer's Market Gourmet. Well, here is a wonderful dish that's great any time of year, risotto. Now, risotto is a traditional Italian rice dish, and it's the way you cook this particular kind of rice that makes it so creamy and delicious. The other thing that's great is you can put anything in it, whether you want to use mushrooms, asparagus, any kind of pumpkin or squash. You can put in artichokes, fennel, fresh peas, fresh corn, tomatoes, you name it, it makes a delicious risotto. Now today I'm going to be making a butternut squash risotto, and with the butternut squash you're not going to need the whole thing. In fact, any vegetable you use you're only going to need about a pound of it, but you are going to have to prepare the vegetable a little bit. Now for the squash we are going to need to take the seeds out and clean that out real well, and any vegetable that has a real tough skin or outer layer you're going to need to peel that off. And then the other thing to remember is no matter what vegetable you're using, make sure that you cut it up into some smaller pieces. This dish does have a little bit of texture to it, which is great, and the vegetables will cook, but this is about the size you want to start with. Now, to also, with any vegetable that you're using, get a small onion and go ahead and finely dice that up. If you dice it up really finely, it'll just dissolve into the rice, but it'll still add a great layer of flavor. And then I also like to add 1 clove of garlic, and I just mince that right into the onion because I'm going to cook that together in our pan. Now I always make my risotto in a medium-sized soup pot, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of butter in that over medium heat. And then I'm going to add my squash and my onion and my garlic. Now depending on what type of vegetable you're using, the butternut squash, it needs to cook the entire length of this dish. But there are some other vegetables that will only cook part of the time. And in the recipe that I have for you, it'll say exactly when you should put the vegetables into saute. Then as you can see, I've added a little salt and pepper, and then I'm going to stir this up and let this cook together for about 8 minutes. We want the onions and the butternut squash to start to soften. Now while that's cooking, in a separate saucepan, I'm going to heat up about 5 cups of chicken broth. And we're going to be using this hot broth to soften and cook our rice. And for that, we're going to be using 1.5 cups of arborio rice, which is a short grain Italian rice that when you cook it slowly and introduce liquid to it like the chicken broth, it just gets really, really creamy. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 1/2 cup of dry white wine. And I use a Sauvignon Blanc when I'm cooking. And especially in this risotto, it adds a really great flavor. So go ahead and add that. And we're going to let that cook for just a minute or two. We basically want it to evaporate. We want that rice to suck that wine in. Then once the wine is evaporated, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a ladleful, which is about 1/2 cup of that hot stock, and we're going to put it in with the rice, and we're going to stir that. And what you're going to notice is that it's going to be absorbed really quickly into that rice. And that's what we want. Once it's absorbed like that, then we're going to add another ladleful, and we're going to keep stirring. Now, this goes on for a total of about 40 minutes. Now, if you're making this as a family, sometimes it's nice to take turns stirring, but you do have to stay with it. Again, once it starts to evaporate quite a bit, it's sucking up that moisture, you're going to then add another ladleful of stock. Now, what's happening is because we're cooking this rice so slowly, it is just making this really creamy texture. It's really fantastic. And about halfway through the cooking process, you're going to find that you've used up all your stock. But you're going to want to continue to cook it nice and slowly and keep it stirring like this, because we have to get the grains of rice to where they're cooked perfectly. And notice how creamy this is. And the only way we can accomplish this is by cooking it nice and slow. Now, after about 40 minutes, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be very, very thick. And then we're going to add at the last minute 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese and then just a little bit more kosher salt to taste. And you're just going to find that because we've cooked this so nice and slowly, it's just very thick and very rich tasting. And yet it's just rice and vegetables and broth. Now, just a reminder, I've been nominated for a Tasty Award honoring the best in food and fashion programming, and I've been nominated for Best Home Chef in a series for this show, The Farmer's Market Gourmet. So if you'd like to vote, just go to our website, click on the Tasty Awards icon. It'll take you right to the voting page. And don't forget, voting ends January 5th. Well, risotto is definitely a dish you should have in your repertoire, because whether it's springtime or summertime or fall or winter, you can make an outstanding risotto dish with whatever vegetable is in season. Thanks for joining me today. If you'd like to get the recipe that you saw me make today, just go to our website and visit the Farmer's Market Gourmet show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'll see you next time.